Originally, I was only going to cover just the battle for the Iron Skillet or the Apple Cup this week, and actually had y'all vote on it. But due to having some extra time this week, I said,
fuck it.
We're going to cover both. The Apple Cup is one of the biggest name rivalries to survive conference realignment, and is a game that will be around through 2028. It is a series that dates back to 1900, making it one of the oldest rivalries in college football. This is the story of the Apple Cup. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know which rivalry is your favorite in the comment section below. The Apple Cup, played between Washington and Washington State, dates all the way back to 1900. During the inaugural matchup, 1,500 fans would witness what the spokesman review called the best exhibition of the game the city had ever seen. The game would actually end in a 5-5 tie, and Washington State, then known as Washington Agriculture, won the second matchup in the series 10-0 in Pullman. While Washington State would get the first one in the series, Washington would dominate the series through 1932, winning 16 of their first 26 matchups during that time period. Washington State would only win 7 games during that period, and would only win back-to-back games in 1929 and 1931. In 1934, the series would introduce the Governor's Trophy, a 40-pound bronze shield which is known as the oldest tangible piece of history when it comes to this rivalry. The shield has a husky and a cougar jousting over the shield, and beneath them are the scores from the 1934 to 1939 games. Sometime during World War II, according to a bankruptcy court filing, the Governor's Trophy disappeared. Seattle businessman and philanthropist Ken Alhadeff, who owns the shield, explained it literally disappeared for 50 years, as if nobody knew where it was. I don't know how you lose a 40-pound bronze shield, but they managed to do it. With his interest in antiques and memorabilia well known, Alhadeff, a Washington State alum, member of the University Board of Regents, received a letter from the assistant to the president of the university on October 14, 1998, that the shield was to be auctioned. There was a Washington Cougar working in the bankruptcy court, and they had reached out to Alhadeff, and had they not reached out, the shield would have been melted down for scraps. Alhadeff bought it and would hold onto it, explaining, "I thought about taking it to WSU, but I believe in my heart it wasn't Washington State's trophy. It was the trophy presented by the governor. I thought about taking it to Olympia, but I literally put it in the lobby of a building I own, where after 10 years it still is. It doesn't belong to alumni, that's not appropriate, it belongs to the governor." In 2007, the trophy was put on display at the governor's office. While the Governor's Trophy only had the score up to the 1939 game, which was won by Washington State 6-0, it is believed to have been passed back and forth until 1946. With the disappearance of the Governor's Trophy, there would not be a trophy presented between the two until 1963, when the Big Apple Trophy was donated by the Washington Apple Commission. The trophy made sense as Washington had a reputation as a major producer of apples, and it would become known as the state fruit during the state's centennial celebration in 1989. The Big Apple Trophy is more well known as the Apple Cup these days. The Apple Cup would be introduced during the Huskies' 8-game win streak in the series, and the Cougars would not get their hands on it until 1967. In 1975, the Moon de Gains would occur during the first season of head coach Don James. The 5-5 Huskies found themselves down by 13 to the 3-7 Cougars late in the game. Rather than go for a field goal, Washington State looked to take a 20-point lead. On 4th and 1 from UW's 14-yard line, Washington State quarterback John Hopkins threw a pass over the middle that was picked off by a UW safety, Al Burleson, and returned 93 yards for a touchdown. The Huskies got the ball back with 1:58 to play and needed another touchdown to win. Quarterback Warren Moon heaved a deep pass towards wide receiver Spider Gaines. 2 Washington State defensive backs couldn't pick it off, and the ball was tipped into the arms of Gaines, who took the ball the rest of the way for a touchdown and a 28-27 UW victory. According to the Seattle Times, it is the second greatest game in the rivalry's history. In 1981, the Cougars and the Huskies played for a spot in the Rose Bowl and to win the Pac-10 title. Washington would win the game 23-10, with the help from USC, who beat UCLA. They went to the Rose Bowl for the second straight year. In 1988, Washington State would come back from a 12-point deficit to win 32-31. In 1991, a 56-20 win by the Huskies would win their second national title under James, finishing the year 12-0, although Drew Bledsoe threw for 430 yards. In 1992, the Snow Bowl occurred as Washington State would upset number 5 Washington 42-21. 1997 would see the Huskies and the Cougars combine for 76 points in a top 20 matchup, which became the highest scoring game in the series history. Washington State would win 41-35 to go to the Rose Bowl for the first time in 67 years. Ryan Leaf said after the game, "There was no way we were going to lose to them. There was no way we were going to lose to Washington. We worked too hard." In 2002, the Huskies entered the game as huge underdogs to the number 3 Cougars and would pull off the upset 29-26. In overtime, the game would be decided off of one of the most controversial calls in the series history. A throw by backup quarterback Matt Kegel in for an injured Jason Gesser was intended to be a screen pass but was batted down by UW defensive lineman Kai Ellis. Rather than being ruled an incompletion, referee Gordon Reese swiftly ended the game with a call that will ring in the ears of Husky and Cougar fans forever. The ruling on the field was that it was a backwards pass. Washington recovered the pass and the game is over. Then Washington head coach Rick Neuheisel told ESPN, "It was an explosion because everything they wanted in life was there for the taking. Remember all those roses in the stands? It was going to be their night of nights to be a Coug, and we were basically the turd in the punch bowl." Washington would win the 6th straight game over Washington State in 2003 when they upset the number 8 Cougars 27-19. 2007 would see the two meet up for the 100th meeting, and it would be a fun game as Washington State's Alex Brink and Washington's Jake Locker would lead both their offenses in a shootout. Brink would throw for 399 yards and 5 touchdowns as the Cougars beat the Huskies 42-35. It was Brink's 3rd win over the Huskies in 4 tries, which is the most by a Cougars quarterback in school history. The 2008 game was dubbed the Crapple Cup by the national media as Washington State entered the game 1-10 and Washington was 0-10. It was the first time 2 10-loss teams had ever faced off in the Pac-10 history. In a sloppy double overtime game, Washington State would win 16-13. Former coach and player Paul Wolf said it was a low point for both programs. It was really hard for either one of those teams to win a game. It was more or less about the team that lost. I think the Huskies lost that game more than we won it at the time. 2012 would be Mike Leach's first Apple Cup and the Cougars would find themselves down 28-10 at half. They would come back to win in overtime 28-21. Washington would proceed to win the next 7 matchups, but in 2021, Washington State would dominate, winning 30-13. Washington would win the next 2 matchups, but the Cougars would shock Washington last year in a 24-19 thrilling game. One crazy fact I found out when making this video is Mike Leach went 1-7 against the Huskies. The game has been played continuously since 1945 except for 2020, and Washington State had to opt out due to a positive COVID test, and this will be the 117th matchup this year. Washington has dominated the series, going 76-34-6. The game still means something to everyone involved, as it's always an exciting game. Former Washington State player and coach Paul Wolf told ESPN back in 2016, "The 2 universities couldn't be more different. They are polar opposites in terms of alumni and regions where they live. Pullman and Seattle couldn't be more different. It's the beer drinkers versus the wine drinkers. Just a lot different in every way. The 2 schools are just under 300 miles away from each other, and the areas are just so different from each other. Washington is located in Seattle, which is the state's major city, which is known for its technology industry, while Pullman is a small college town that is a very rural area. City versus agriculture." Brink spoke on the rivalry, saying it was super important for a lot of reasons. "I was so fortunate to go to Washington State and experience the Apple Cup in all facets. Really believe strongly in the idea of the history of it and the pageantry. The way the fan bases compete in it, the way we care about it, the split family households, all that stuff is the best of what college football is. And in this day and age, with the way things are changing, I think it's important that we protect those things. Reality of it is the record for Washington State against UW. You know, when you make those plays in those big moments, you do kind of become legendary. For a fan base that wants it year in and year out, kind of regardless of the record, when you have the opportunity and you go and make those plays. Like a Kyle Thornton, a guy that was in the program so long, a team captain. Like he was made for that moment, and he stepped up and made that play. I think that's the thing that's pretty special, right? And we're all kind of looking for who's going to be this year's version of that or the next version of that. Because there's always going to be one. There's going to be the opportunity, right? This is the type of game and the type of rivalry where there will always be the moment where someone gets the opportunity to step up and make those plays. I'm excited to see who that can be. We almost lost this rivalry though, back when Washington and Oregon joined UCLA and USC to leave the Pac-12 to join the Big Ten, basically destroying the conference. It looked like the matchup was going away as well. It looked like another rivalry that was just going to die because of realignment, and those in suits and ties not understanding this stuff is what makes college football so special and is so important to the game. But then the two schools would come together and would agree to a 5-year continuation in 2023 through at least 2028. Washington State President Kurt Schultz explained, "The Apple Cup is one of the oldest and most renowned rivalries in all of collegiate athletics. For more than a century, fans across the state have circling the Apple Cup date on their calendar. We are pleased that we will be able to continue this beloved tradition for future generations of Cougar fans. Although Washington State is probably going to get destroyed by the Huskies this week, I'm so excited this game will continue for the foreseeable future." You might be typing in the comments section right now that this rivalry does not matter, but I argue any rivalry, no matter the record, always matters, and it's what makes college football so special. What do you think? Who wins this year's matchup? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.